Yes, we can hear you.
Good deal. Thanks, Andrew. So, welcome to Intro to Engineering. Um, so, today we're going to be covering chapters 1 and 2. I like to make these two chapters fun and real simple, so I won't hold you very long. Um, but I always like to start off with with sort of a icebreaker, so to speak, and I'm not going to change it anyway. So, I'm gonna turn it over to you guys, those of you that like to interact, because I'm an interacting professional. I like to talk. I like for you to talk. I draw on a whiteboard. I can't draw really, but I do make an attempt to convey messages through the whiteboard. Hopefully, they get conveyed. I think they have in the past, but aside from that, I'm not going to continue to ramble. But today we're going to cover engineering work. Is all around us, right? And so I just want to hear from you guys on what you think engineering is. Some of you may know, some of you may have parents, what have you, that are in engineering as a profession. So just want to hear from you guys. What does engineers do? What do you think engineers do? Just from your own perspective or your own experience. Not everybody at once, though. Take your time. Just one hand at a time. Uh, it, you know, but sometime today. Okay, good deal. Thanks, Lawson. Go ahead.
I think that engineering is like it's for people who have a very like creative mindset and like to think of problems that most people don't think of and like to develop solutions for things that most people don't think that might need fixing. And then for the second one, describe what engineers do. Oh, I guess I kind of just said that.
Yeah, you did, but hey, let's go ahead. You can repeat yourself.
Um, I guess like there's your mechanical engineers that do all kinds of stuff like machines and literally all kinds. I mean, all mix. But yeah,
Yeah, no, that's good. Oh, that's good. I appreciate that. Thanks,
no problem.
Lawson.
No problem.
Anyone else? What do they think engineers do, or what is an engineer? Yes, go ahead. I believe Mason.
Yes, sorry, I forgot to put my audio. I think engineers are people that just like to know how things work and
Mhm.
people that want to become like basically innovate newer, like more efficient things to just help with like normal everyday lifestyle and to
Mhm.
just make things better.
That's good. That's
Yeah.
good. That's true.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Anyone else? No one else. All right, cool. That's fine. Yeah, you're gonna have more opportunities to interact. I like the responses that both Lawson and Mason gave. When I went into engineering, um, I had no idea what an engineer did, or what an engineer was for that matter. And my teachers, they would always respond when they told me I should be an engineer. They would always respond with the same statement: "An engineer resolves the world's problems." Right? And I was like, "What?" It kind of threw me when the person says that they resolve the world's problems. I'm like, I don't want to do that. I don't want that. You know what I mean? I'm like, because at first glance in my mind, I'm like, I don't want that responsibility. You know what I mean? I'm like, I don't want to just be over here solving the world's problems. And lo and behold, here I am, right? Solving the world's problems. That's funny. But to make it more concise, or even, put it in layman's terms, um, yeah, it does, right? Like, dude, solve the world's problems. Like, but all around you, right, there are things that needs to be resolved. There, like minor issues, right? Like everyday things. Like you think about it back in the day. It's like what, like in the 90s when y'all were born? No, no, like even before then, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like maybe 100. BC or AD, right? One of those times when you think about simple things like taking a bath. Like, how did they do it? Because there was a point in time where you didn't have showers. I remember there was a point in time at my own house there was not a shower, right? Like, wow, wait, what? Not a shower? I know you guys probably take showers, right? But no, at the point in time where you just took baths. And then one day, somebody came up with a shower. That was an engineer that did that. Or you think about brushing your teeth. That was a point in time where you didn't have a toothbrush or toothpaste. It's like, wow, man, what? And you just like, you start thinking about simple stuff like that, that one day there was a point in time, or flossing, exactly, that people didn't do this kind of stuff. It's like, well, what did they do? Like, exactly, they were creative, right? They had to come up with stuff to freshen up their breath, right? Like mint. Mint is an old remedy. I'm quite sure they probably just got mint leaves and was just like eating it or something after a meal, right? And then some of them just didn't brush their teeth. But you know what's funny? Some people today don't brush their teeth, so I guess they kind of still live like they back in those times, right? It just doesn't matter. Like, I didn't know there was such a thing as a toothbrush. But anyway, so when you think about things like that, that's an issue that needs to be resolved. Or hey, you got this big load of something that's really heavy and it needs to be moved. It's like, well, why do we even have this big load? Well, maybe because somebody was clearing off some land and they was like, hey, we need to build these houses. And it's like, well, hey, why are we going to clear the land? All of those trees are in the way. It's like, well, man, we need to come up with a tool to clear the land. It's like, yeah, that's a good idea. How are we going to do that? And then some guy stood up and says, I'll do it. I have an idea. Right. And I know he probably, or she didn't say it that way. They probably just came up with something and they began to utilize it themselves for whatever issue or task they had, right? And then they began to share how they did it, and then even throughout the country or throughout the whole entire world, because back then, we didn't have the worldwide web, right? The internet, and so you couldn't communicate like back and forth across the ocean, and so you would have somebody in some land would design something for whatever issue they had, and somebody across the ocean would design something for whatever issue they had, right? And then as things as the world grew smaller, ideas began to get shared. People would write books, you know what I mean? And what ended up happening was this engineering concept began to formulate, and now you're developing like writings for engineering profession, right, to resolve issues and everyday issues and things of that nature. And I mean, I'm not really trying to go into the history of engineering, so to speak, because that's going to be one of your projects. But just really breaking down and honing in on what an engineer is and what they do, right? They really resolve matters, just as Mason pointed out, like everyday matters, right? And as Lawson was speaking of, there's this functionality that the world needs to go by. There was like a functionality, like everyday functioning, like lights, or just when you think about spending time throughout a day, what are you doing? You may be doing some type of entertainment type thing, or you may be needing to do transportation. And so how are you like even communicating, right? So you're thinking about all of these functions that you do on a daily basis. Back in the day, right, they wrote letters. How did the letters get sent to people? Well, you had people take them. Now you have email, right? And so somebody had to design that. But there was levels, right? So you went from sending a letter, and then like, but dang, before there was a letter, you had to have something to create the letter, because it's like paper, it comes from trees, but dang, there's a process. It's just, you just don't look at a tree and say, oh man, that would make some fine paper. Nah, it didn't happen. Like somebody was probably chopping wood, and they was utilizing the wood for something and stumbled upon a way to formulate paper. Trust me, it didn't just happen like, oh yeah, man, I'm gonna use wood for paper. That's not how it happened. It was, you start somewhere, right? You start at one level and then you build on it. And that's how engineering, even the disciplines, was just formulated. It started somewhere with an idea that somebody had. There was a problem, there was an issue, and then somebody had an idea to resolve the issue. And then it basically developed into a discipline or a profession such as engineering. Um, and then here we are having this discussion about engineering all around us, right? And pretty much that's chapter one. Like for the most part, it's really chapter one. And so then when you go from mechanical engineering, like designing tools to cut down trees, and you know what I mean, and then chemical engineers to process that wood into a white sheet of paper. Because if you think about it, right, you cut wood, it's like, wait, it's not really white with blue lines, or green for graphing paper with blue lines, right? And so you're going to take some chemical engineer that has create some type of a chemical compound to help transfer that wood into a green sheet or a white sheet or whatever color sheet, right? And that's just one form of engineering, or two forms, chemical and mechanical. And then you go into environmental, then you go into civil, people that develop highways, and environmental more or less for releasing toxins and keeping in mind of how much whatever is getting released and how to control it. As far as environmental engineering, I mean, we need to control how we're going to release these chemicals, things of that nature, because you create an issue from trying to resolve an issue, right? It's just like you create more of an issue. You need toothpaste, right? Good, you got a toothbrush. So it's like they kind of like snowballs, right? It's like, how do we get the trees hauled off after we cut them? First, you got to figure out how to cut them. Then after you cut them, you got to figure out how to haul them off, right? Things like that. So everything is sort of like, it sort of works all together when it comes to engineering. And that's why the multiple disciplines are so needful. Even today, you think about where we are today and then where we're going in the future. It's like, oh man, you think about the phone industry. Where are they trying to go in the future? It's not just about making your camera the best camera on your phone. They're trying to do other things, right? And if you just look at the movement from the first generation of whatever phone you have to where you are now, and you think about how, probably won't think about that, but as an engineer, you think about how far your phone has gone or how far it has come. I remember back when phones didn't have internet on them. It's like, what? Wait, what? Yeah, they didn't have the internet on them. All you could do was dial on those things. And then all of a sudden you could text. And then you could text and surf the internet. Then you know what? It created more ways for you to spend money, because then they were like, hey, we're going to charge you for the internet. I mean, that's not anything to do with engineering. That's more marketing and sales and business. But anyways, but yeah, like you just think about engineering, it's all about advancing, right? Or sustainability, coming up with products that's sustainable for the future, or even products that will help with sustainable energy, right? Making the environment cleaner. So when it comes to engineering, man, it's just so many levels to it. There's so many avenues to branches out from every discipline of engineering. I didn't go into electrical, but electrical also another important one, right? When you think about lights, you think about how are we getting electricity. This was a really big eye opener for me a few years ago when I was getting my master's. I didn't realize that, electrical grids. It's like, how are we producing electricity from through these electrical grids? And I was like, man, I didn't know. I seriously didn't know. I just thought there was like this magical electrical light bulb that hit a wire, and then all of a sudden we was able to just keep that wire electricity passing through the wire some kind of way. It's like magic. But then I discovered that electricity is produced through generators, and generators, which is working off of fossil fuels, which is coal. It's like, wait, what? Yeah, you use coal to power generators, and generators in turn provides electricity. It's like, wait, what? Yeah. So you're thinking about such things like having to burn coal, and you're releasing all of these bad gases or what have you into the environment, right? And it's just like, wow, man, huh? That's like old timey engineering. So you coming up with other ways to produce electricity, such as solar, right, or wind, right? And so, but yet and still, a lot of wind turbines use coal, right? Because they have generators that use coal to power the wind turbines. Then the wind turbines pick up a certain amount of speed of wind, and then it keeps it turning, right? That provides electricity. But anyways, I babbled long enough. Any any questions in regards to engineering? And because that's pretty much it. Like if you go through these slides, uh, I mean, I didn't go through them from just slide by slide, but you do have access to these slides, and you can go and read it. But any question in regards to chapter 1, engineering, and what engineers do? All right, good deal. So a couple things, is like, as you do know, to be an engineer, you got to go to school. Um, and then, we always talk about this, the logistics. You have to go to a 4-year college, and it has to be accreditation board for engineering and technology, a bit accredited. So those are things you already know, but hey, gotta point it out. Um, and then even in engineering, like I spoke about last week, you have the option to get your license, your engineering license, right? It's the professional license. What does that mean? That means you take a test to be certified as a professional engineer, right? Well, if you don't get a degree at an accredited college, then you won't be honored as an engineer as far as your work profession. So they typically jobs, if they review your background, they won't hire you as an engineer. But then you do have some job that doesn't really do all of that reviewing as far as you having a degree. And if you know what you're doing, then I guess you could still get hired on. Uh, yeah, definitely. You can't get your professional engineering license if you haven't gotten a degree from an accredited school. So, but yeah. And here again, I was going in that direction with the professional engineering. What what is the difference between somebody that has a PE license or somebody that doesn't? It's just that they have a PE license. A PE license, what does that do for you? Well, it allows you to say you have your own engineering firm. You basically you can sign off on your designs, and you can do all of the calculations, and you can basically you basically are responsible for producing new design work in whatever discipline you are in. You're responsible for producing and proofing that design work, right? And so if you get something patent and you sign off on it, and say something happens, um, you know, like somebody dies as a result of your design and your proofing, then you can get sued. Um, Somebody that doesn't have a PE license, well, that signature was from some PE. You still get the design stuff. You still get to, do calculations and things of that nature. And if you're working for a company and you get a patent, your name will be on it, but that patent will belong to that company you're working for. Even if you have a PE, that's still going to belong to the company. But if you have your own company and then you are a PE, then you could sign off on those designs or what have you. And it's like, well, can you get your own company? And if you don't have your PE license, yeah, absolutely, you can have your own engineering firm. But you're going to need to get a PE though to sign off on your design work though. That's the only difference. It's like you can come up with a design of something, but you're going to have to if somebody requiring you to have like some sort of a certified stamp, PE stamp, or some API 6 some da 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 whatever. I say API because that's a specification. Those are specification documents that we use for designing things like, say, I work in the industry where where we design chokes, and so we design chokes per this document. And so API 6A, they requiring some type of stamp on your design or what have you. You're going to have somebody come in with a PE license to stamp it, even if you have your own company. So that's where getting your license, where it benefits you. It's like y'all can do the same thing with that one exception, like PEs. They have a stamp that they can stamp off on designs, and they can do their own. You can do your own calculations, but you would still have to have a PE to prove them, what have you. So it's just a lot of, like, I guess you could say, logistics behind it too. So you can both do a lot of PEs. Honestly, they don't really do a lot of designing. They do a lot of proofing. Like a lot of guys, they're what you would say, not contract workers, but they do contracts where people pay them so many hundreds of dollars an hour. You know what I mean? You have your PE. It's like, hey man, I need you to come in and prove my calculations or what have you. And so they're like, oh, okay, I'll prove your calculations, and it take me about 16 hours, about 250 an hour. And it only took them an hour to do it, but you charging them 16 hours. Like, yeah, you can make a lot of money, just having your PE. But the thing is, though, if something happens, you get the blame, right? So it has its positives, and then it has its negatives. So you got to make sure, if you are signing off on some PEs or some designs or what have you, you make sure you're doing it correctly. Yeah. So yeah. But anyways, any other questions? No. Do I have my PE? No, I don't have my PE. I am, I don't know what you would call it, but so they approved me to get my PE. I just have to pass the test. So yeah, I keep pushing it off. I'm gonna take it. I'm gonna take the test. I don't know when though. I need to take. I need to get that done. You would have needed to have done some design work, and you have to get. So I had to get 5 letters of recommendation, people that I work with, and then they had to basically vouch for me as an engineer, indicating that yes, I know what I'm doing, and then also when it came to my design work, they could say yes, yeah, he did do these designs, and he did exemplify good stewardship, and his design work didn't fail or what have you. So I've designed a few different things actually, but one thing I always looked to that I was really proud of was I designed test fixtures for BOPs, blowout preventers. So it's like interfacing test fixtures. Like, so say we had spherical BOPs, I designed like basically the connection points for those spherical BOPs, where we supply high pressure to those BOPs. And BOP is a blowout preventer. And then I've also designed small scale, like I've designed blowout preventers on small scale for sucker rod pumps. And so it's really just a vessel. It's a pressure vessel for the most part. Um, and then I've designed stuffing boxes. I've designed pressure systems. So yeah, just to name a few things. But everything that I've done in my career has all been around fluid mechanics. So yeah, so I really like fluids and mechanical things, really dealing with fluids. So all right. Yeah, it's pretty cool. Like I'll share my screen real quick. Uh, Let me see. Well, this is just a drawing. What's this? So this is like something. This I designed this thing here. What is that? It's a choke, but it's a test fixture. If you all can see my screen, and what does a choke do? A choke just chokes the flow of a fluid coming out of a well. So, and why would you want to do that? Well, you have to capture that fluid into a vessel, right? And so you want to reduce the flow and pressure of that so that, when it flows into another vessel, it won't explode it, right? So you're trying to slow down the volume of it. So yeah, that's something that I've designed. But it's like when I look at design, I didn't design everything on it, right? I designed the vessel portion of it. I did calculations on the vessel portion of it, right? And so, yeah, simple stuff like that. Um, but yeah, chapter 2, well, fluids, so that mostly hydraulic fluid, right? So, and then hydrostatic, which is water, and then like gas, GN2. Yeah. So chapter 2, another short chapter. But when it comes to chapter 2, really the big takeaway here is with this class, as we mentioned last week or on Tuesday, it's a lot of work, right? And so I know some of you have already asked me about the homework assignment about creating a schedule. So chapter 2, really, we like to go into discussing the transition from high school to college. Some of you have already um, been in college and graduated from college, right? And so you already know, there's a big difference in, well, maybe, I don't know. But when it comes to engineering in high school and engineering in college, it's a big difference on work schedule, and then just how time consuming it is. And then you also have to think about if you have a full-time job. And I'm thinking some of you may have a part-time job, which is why you're taking the night class of this section of this particular course, right? So you even have to consider how to budget, or you consider budgeting your time at a grander level, right? Because you're working in the day, working daytime, and if you have a family, then you have your family that you have to spend time with. Then you're gonna have to think about how in the world you're gonna do all your homework for this class on top of other classes if you have it. Yes, yeah, Lawson, you can resubmit it. You can just email it to me if you didn't do it correctly, right? And so chapter 2 just goes into just different ways you want to study, right? And so I always tell my students this is how, but my professors told me this, for every hour that you have in lecture, you should spend 3 hours for that particular course outside of lecture, right? So if you're in that class for 2 hours of 2 hours of lecture, then you should spend 6 hours of study time outside of lecture for that particular class. And it may not just be studying; it could be researching, it could be doing homework, um, it could be doing working on a project, right? And that's through the course of a week, 6 hours over 7 days, right? And it's like that's not a lot when you think about it over a span of 7 days. But then when you think about the time that you're in class, that you're at work, that you have to spend time with your family, that you are commuting if your job is not, if you're not working from home and you're working, what I mean, at a certain location where your job may be. Working from home has really helped students because you're always right there. You don't have to go anywhere, right? But if you're not working from home, right, and you have to go into work, you got to consider your commuting time. And so those 6 hours could get missed, they could elapse, meaning a amount of 6 hours that you may have to work on school or your courses, right? And then thinking about if you took more than one class, right? So if you got 2 or 3 classes, and that's 18 hours over the span of 7 days. Like, oh man, it's like, well, I don't have that kind of time. So it could get depleted really quickly. So you have to budget. You have to come up with strategic ways to study. You know what I mean? If you can't do that amount of time, it's just like, well, man, okay, my professor would tell me this. He said, well, study what you don't know. It's like, well, Dad, how do I study what I don't know? Well, if there's something in the book and you're reading through something, right? Because you should be reading the lectures before class, right? And so you read those lectures and you see something in those lectures that you don't know, then you study what you don't know. And then it says, he told me, he said, you should, you know what I mean, recall what you do know. Like, oh, think about it, basically, you know what I mean, things that you do know. But what you don't know is studying like how doing research and finding out more about the things, just finding more information on things that you don't fully know or that you don't fully understand, asking questions to the professor or whomever to get a better understanding. And things you do know, just recall it. It's like, oh yeah, I know this is probably gonna be on the exam. I do remember that this goes with this, and this happens with this, then the third, right? But anywho, not to belabor that point, but recall what you know, study what you don't know. That's becoming strategic. So all of the stuff you covered in lecture, if you don't need to study it, then don't, right? Just study what you don't know. And that's just the reading. Like maybe you spend 15, 20 minutes reading over something, a material or a chapter within the book. But yeah, so just developing better study habits, uh, things like that. And then getting a group, right? I know a lot of you share your phone numbers last class. So you formulate a group and then, hey, just staying connected. You know, maybe you can't make lecture, you know, send them a text. Hey, you know, what did we cover in lecture that I may have missed? Or, you know, or I went back and I listened to the recording, but I didn't fully understand this point. Could you help me out? You know, just get in a really good study group. And even when you study group, make sure you have somebody in the group that's smarter than you. You know, if you got a group where they're not as smart as you, then you know you're the smartest person in the group. And then, hey, maybe you just help that particular group, and then you get in another group that will be able to help you. But then if you're just the smartest person on earth, then you don't have to worry about it. I'm just playing. I'm just kidding. But anyways, um, but yeah, man, that's just some little tips. But so when it comes to your schedule that we're requiring that you create for your homework, this is just like an example. So you're factoring your eating, cooking, sleeping, cooking and eating, grocery shopping, grooming, you know, spending time with family, and you just say how many hours you're doing of each, right? And then so now this is just an example. Now, how yours should look is, you know, you're gonna basically spread out each course you have this semester. And you know, if you have a job, how many hours you're working on your job, and then if you commute, you know, you can put that in there if you want. But what you're trying to do is figure out like how often are you going to be able to study or recall or what have you, or do your homework, you know, preparing for a test or doing a research paper or a project. You're going to basically budget that out for one, right? And then you could just, if you know, you could just do it for 1 weekend and I'll be fine with that. But if you want to do it for 1 week for your own, you know, your own personal planning and scheduling, then you could just do it for the entire semester. And you don't have to turn that in. I just want to see 1 week. Okay. So, but yeah, you can, that'll just help you to manage your time for this semester and to keep you from, you know, having to email me, be like, professor, you know, I mismanaged my time and I need you to go back and open up that assignment because it's not showing anymore. I didn't get it to submit it. And then having to hear me say, well, no, you only had till Friday to do that assignment. And so you got to take that 0. You don't want me to say that. But then, you know, I might feel okay that day and I'll be like, well, you know, I'll let you do it, but you're only going to get half credit. So it may be like a quiz, but typically I don't allow you to make up quizzes. But I do allow you to make up homework on occasions. And then, you know, your project, you know, I may allow you to make that up too, because, you know, it is worth 25% of your grade, I do believe. But anyway, so I know y'all gonna go back and listen to that recording, but you said, but no, but just saying, just being mindful, managing your time, and you know, so you don't be having to do that. You know, I know I'm still gonna get students that will. It's okay. I know I'll just handle you guys accordingly. And yeah. Any questions? Chapter 2. and we'll go over project graduation, like I said, next week. So, but anybody have any questions? Yes, no, maybe about anything? All right, good deal. I love it. Oh, nope. Somebody has a question. About the groups. Let me go back. Sorry. We choose our groups. Yes, absolutely. You could choose your own group, Cassandra. Yeah, yeah, please do. 4 people at most to a group. So, and no less than 3. So, if you got 3 people you know you want to be in your group, then go for it. Just email me those groups. You email me each individual that you want in your group, so I'll know ahead of time. Yes, yes, Lawson, that's correct. You can choose now, Z, um, but it's going to be important. Yeah, I guess it's best for you to choose now because when I assign you your well, project graduation is more of a solo project, but if you can work with your group on it, but it is really just a solo project because I know a lot of you probably are different disciplines. So the quiz is in the quiz folder. It should be, but hey, let me share my screen. All right, so you should be able to see my screen. So course content, it should be open, all right? And then if you go to quizzes, yeah, that's your first quiz. So choose a discipline of engineering and describe what type, and that should be what type of products they design. All right. So were you able to see it where I went? So just go to course content, scroll all the way down to quizzes. And there it is. Okay, cool. Good deal. All right. Any other questions? Yes, sir, Lawson. Go ahead.
So is it cool if I just send you the homework to you like through email? You said
Yes, you can email me.
because I forgot to add one little thing. So
Okay.
yes, sir. All right, thank you.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no problem. All right. Any other question? If not, I'll stop the recording.